Hello, it's the end of the year, and of course that means it's time for the annual Beyond the Vibe Awards show. The only award show where we don't even know who the winners are going to be. Of course, for those that aren't familiar, we decide right here, right now, who the winners of each category are going to, well, each respective category are going to be. And we'll come to a conclusion here and now. No kind of rigged things going on. It's decided on the spot, off the cuff. Of course, this year it's a little bit different. I'm joined obviously by Lee Graham of The Rock Show and Jack Edwards, of course known for his time in Piston. Thank you very much for joining me, guys.
No worries.
You're welcome.
So we'll jump straight into things. We're going to kick off with kind of your ones to watch of 2023. So that's kind of your up and coming bands for next year, maybe ones that are starting to creep through, but we haven't heard everything from them just yet. Maybe not a full album. So we're starting off with Creeping Gene. E-Lock.
So if you're looking for a light, you can have mine. I wanna see your love light shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine on me. Will you be waiting? Gotta let me know. Coming home. Coming home. Will you be there for me, darling? You've got to tell me so.
And Zach and the New Men.
Don't stop, don't look around, don't waste time, don't be alone, don't be afraid now. And I need you to let me have, 'cause I know
A very young band. What do you guys kind of make of these three?
So with Zach and the New Men, they're relatively, obviously new to me. I got sent a single for Birdcage earlier this year to the radio show, and it was like one of those ones that came through, and it was just, I get sent a lot of stuff, and some of it's good, and some of it's great, if you know what I mean, Some of it really cuts through, and this one was really one that really cut through. Really enjoyed it. And then when I saw them live at my mate's festival, Crazy Cowboy Festival down in Reading, it was like, hang on, they're children. They're like literally just turned 18. And I think they've only just started doing more gigs because they're now just old enough to start going into actual venues, basically. And the song craftsmanship these guys are coming out with already just astounded me. So I've been really impressed with these guys this year, and it looks like they're already starting to make waves, and looks like they've got a lot of promise for next year in terms of a full album. I think they released an EP earlier this year, but I think the plans from what I hear are a full album for next year.
I mean, you put me onto them, and I couldn't get over how young they were. I mean, they look 15, 16, possibly somewhere around there, like proper young kids. So it's really cool seeing, a young, kind of a proper young band kind of come through. And another one that kind of stuck out to me, I mean, I put them in one of my ones to watch episodes earlier in the year, of course, Keylock. People will be perhaps familiar with Aaron Keylock. I think they're really cooking and doing something, aren't they? They feel like they're starting to, I mean, they played wasn't it Planet Rockstock or somewhere? They played
Rockstock. I saw them at Winter's End just before the lockdown kicked in a couple of years ago as well. They played that.
Yeah,
I know the lead singer was in a band. Is it Johnny?
Yeah,
He was in a band called, I think they were called Black Cat Bones or Bad Cat Bones or something back in the day. Then it turned into Revival Black in the end. So that's how I'm familiar with Keylock.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's got like this great kind of classic rock voice, isn't he?
Great voice.
Yeah, there's something about, like, I mean, it felt to me like Aaron's kind of gone away and had a look and just looked for that kind of classic vocalist that you want. You know, it really fits, I think, well with what he's kind of going for. The final one, Creeping Gene. This is a band that I only discovered 2 weeks ago, Lee. It was something like that.
Actually, 3 weeks back, he sent me those tracks, and
I messaged you, and I was like, "This is kind of, I don't know. There's something about them where it feels like there's this brewing potential there. They seem to have this kind of X factor. I don't know, but it's like this fully accomplished sound, even though they've just released this kind of debut album just a couple of months ago. And they feel to me like they've been doing this for years. I mean, they probably have been doing this for years, but they're starting to kind of creep through. And they seem quite accomplished. I mean, there's a bit of Rival Sons kind of vibe in there, but again, I think for those that haven't heard this album, definitely go and check them out, because there's something, I think, particularly next year, I think you're going to hear a lot more of them. I believe they were on BBC introducing like a couple of months ago for a single. So yeah, they're definitely ones to look out for. Yeah, who are we going to go with, do you reckon? Because it's tough, isn't it? Like, there's the three potential upcomers. I mean, it's kind of who we think are probably going to be next year's breakthrough, perhaps. It's tough.
It's tough because obviously Keylock, with the history of, like Jack was saying, with Johnny and obviously Aaron as well, they've already got that kind of backing them up. Whereas Zach and the New Men and Creeping Gene just feel like they're coming out the blocks a bit more fresh, maybe. But equally, Keylock is a new band or newer band, and I do think. I mean,
they've to date Keylock have only released like 2 tracks, so they're like new. Even though obviously we know about Aaron. What do you reckon, Jack?
I would say so. The young guys, that's the Zach and the New Men.
Yeah.
I think we should give it to them, because I think it's nice when a young band gets something and recognised for their hard work. That's what I think. And even though Keylock as well, they're new as well, and I love them. I think they're great. It'd be nice for just for their spirits. I think as a band.
I mean, that's single Birdcage was quite. I mean, it's of a level, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah, I've heard that. It sounds really good.
It's a great sounding track. Like I say, when I got it sent through to the radio show, like, this is no disrespect to anyone else who was sending me through stuff at the time, like, but it was one that really cut through the crowd. It's difficult to try and give everything a proper listen to with the stuff you get sent sometimes, but if anyone's good enough to send stuff, I'll always listen to it. It might take me a few weeks, but I always do listen to it. But that was one when I heard it, it was just like, well, hang on, instantly, like, this is something a bit special here. This is something that little bit, like I say, that 10% more that seems that cuts through and makes all that difference. And then when I saw them live at Crazy Cowboy Festival, they opened up the day and they already had a really good crowd on. I mean, it's a festival all day, starting off at midday, and we all know what those things are like. Their first set, no one really wants to play it because it could be a little bit, obviously, less attended than when it gets to the evening. But they already had a really good crowd and were getting everybody going. So yeah, I must admit, they get my vote.
I think that's it then. I think we've made our first decision off the cuff.
Yeah, so I like that it's off the cuff. It's cool.
This year's ones to watch for 2023 are Zach and the New Men. It's already a surprise, I think. I know, right? Moving on, Best EP. This is a category that obviously gives a chance for those that maybe didn't pull out a full album but had something to release this year. we've got Blue Nation, Echoes. The Virgin Marys, The Devil Keeps Coming.
Democracy is a word shot from the mouth of a killer. Of a killer. Of a killer. You're a killer.
And Philip Seth Campbell with Feel Again.
And then I feel again, white lines in front of me, I can't disappear, and I live inside my dream. You could put some joy upon my face, sunshine in an empty place. This is a rhythm of the night, oh yeah, the rhythm of the night. This is a rhythm of my life, oh yeah.
I mean, Lee, you were saying about Philip Seth Campbell, and I was like, okay. I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with his previous works, and I listened to it, and I thought this is a great EP, but nobody listened. Like nobody's kind of speaking about it.
No, I mean, I've always like you say, I'm obviously familiar with him through obviously Temperance Movement and then Bison Family, and then I was fortunate enough to interview him tail end of last year. It was about this time last year, and. This was a Bison Family thing, and then not long after I interviewed him, he stepped away from the limelight. He was, I think it's documented the sort of struggles he's had with addiction sometimes, and he put up a very honest post saying, "Look, I need to go sort myself out properly. I'm going to walk away." I've always thought that Phil had one of the best voices going. I think he's one of the best frontmen I've ever seen. And I was like, oh man, because I was like, Temperance Movement stopped, and then he had Bison Family, which was a great album. I thought, oh, brilliant, it's something new from him. And then obviously he went quiet while obviously he was doing what he had to do, and then he put out a track, I think it's Fade Away on the EP, and that was the first one I heard, and I was like, wow, it was just so soulful. This EP is brilliant, really good. And then like that cover of Dance Anthem Rhythm of the Night I sent you, Ryan, it's just like
that was like the biggest surprise of the year. I would have never have guessed that he would have covered this song. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, when you said, oh, he's covered this song, I was like, how on earth is that going to work?
Yeah,
like it doesn't really seem like something like that, but he's totally kind of made it his own and changed it into something really kind of deep, like a club anthem. I don't know how that works, but I mean that's an achievement in itself. I mean another one there, Blue Nation, of course, a band that you made me aware of, Lee.
Yeah.
I mean they've kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, seemingly.
They're a band that have been sort of brooding away for a while. I mean, I saw them a few years back because when me and you just had a chat generally, mate, saying, I saw them supporting Dirty Thrills 2017, something like that. So they've been brooding away for a while, but it just feels like with this Echoes EP that people have started to click into them, and people have started to, for want of a better term, wake up and pay attention. And I said to you when we were doing our album show that if it had been a top 20 releases of 2022 and not 2020 albums, that this would be right at the top for me, because it doesn't have enough songs to be an album, obviously, but in terms of song quality, it's right up there for me. If I would, like I say, if we were doing a release this show, it would be my favourite release of the year. It really
Wow.
was. To the point where, like I say, I'd seen them, I say, with Dirty Thrills, got their album out at the time. And then for whatever reason, I didn't hear from them for a while. And then I got sent the first single they released off the EP, I Feel Low, to the radio show, and I obviously clocked the name when it came through. And I was like, oh, brilliant, it's those guys. And put that track on, and I was like, wow, they've grown, they've developed, they've tightened whatever they needed to tighten as bands do when they're, a few years down the line. And again, and then when got chatting to Neil and Luke again, and for me, it's my release of the year. So
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, that's a bold claim there. Last one, Virgin Mary's, The Devil Keeps Coming.
I love that band, I do.
I was going to say, I have a feeling like this would be Jack's choice.
Yeah.
They're a band that I interviewed. I interviewed Ali earlier on in the year, and there's something with this new EP that's kind of re-energized them.
Yeah.
Obviously they're a two-piece now, and this is kind of it's almost that kind of second debut. Like, I don't know, it feels like after this bit of a break, they've kind of come back and put a new stamp on it. What's that track? You're a Killer? Is it You're a Killer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Great, man.
Exactly. I mean, that really kind of stuck out for me. I mean, that obviously that was their kind of leading single. But there's something there still, isn't there? They're not far from finished yet. And it feels like they're still, maybe they found a way now to kind of properly work between the two of them.
Well, I love their work ethic, I do, because they've been going a long time as well. And I think him as a songwriter, I think he's incredible, to be quite honest. I think his lyrics are brilliant, his vocal melody is brilliant, and he's a really good guitar player. He's just a solid guitar player. And I think they're brilliant. And I'm surprised they're not they deserve to be so much bigger than they are, because I think their songs and their look, I really like him, Ali. And is it Danny on drums, Danny Dolan?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he's a brilliant drummer, like very, very, very inventive. Go on, sorry.
A lot of people have said with Danny, he kind of just hammers these drums every time he goes out and plays. It's like he's just battering them.
Yeah, he's very inventive, and they had that song, "Sitting Ducks," I think it's called.
Yeah.
Virgin Mary's. That's a sick song. That's like, I listened to it and I was like, man, I wish I wrote a song.
I mean, that is it, isn't it? Like when you've got other musicians being like, oh, I wish I'd made that.
Every track, like I put them on at the gym, and I was messaging him actually, because I wanted to see if I wanted to co-write and some stuff. And he messaged me as the song come on, like their latest song come on my Spotify at the gym. I was like, dude, this is the weirdest thing. And then every track that played after that, I was like, belter, banger. Like everyone was just so strong. So strong.
I mean, I think that is the thing with them. It's like there's it's real kind of punchy, like high energy kind of tracks, and particularly off this new EP, it does have a kick to it, I think.
There's definitely still making people stand up and pay attention. I think I said to you, Ryan, I saw the guys down this end. Me and my mate went to go see New Model Army, and Virgin Mary's were opening up for them. And, there was a lot of people who like New Model Army first time around, obviously, there. So there's a lot of elder sort of post-punks down there kind of thing, and people maybe not knowing who they were. I'll be honest, I was probably there more for Virgin Mary's than I was New Model Army, as much as I like New Model Army. But because of this EP, I'd not seen them as a two-piece. Last time I saw them, they were still a trio. So I was really excited to see them as a two-piece live. And they wasted no time with introductions. They just came in, bang, straight out the gate, and there was no, it's like a support act. Unfortunately, some people can be ignorant of a support act and still sit there trying to talk through it or whatever. There was no one who dared to try and talk through that, because they were playing so bloody loud. They wouldn't have been able to hear what they were talking to each other about anyway. So they might stood up and pay attention, and it was an incredible set. And I managed to grab Ali very briefly after the show and have a quick nap with him, like before we sort some stuff out for the radio. But yeah, the EP's brilliant. I've been a fan of them since I first happened to come across their set. I think it was down in 2009, 2010, something like that. I just wandered in the tent and they happened to be playing, and the energy in there was just ferocious. It was just...
I think what's mad about them is that they've got a sound, I think, that appeals to so many different audiences. You've got a punk audience, you've got a rock audience, you've got a young audience. They haven't just labelled themselves to a particular or either age demographic or like music sort of, music catches, you know what I mean? Like they appeal to so many different people, and I think for a new band to do that, a young band as well, even though they've been going a long time, I just think I'd take my hat off, because I think I know firsthand that it's very difficult to try and appeal to such a wide audience and get them all on your side. It's very difficult.
I mean, I'm like kind of more traditionally like a classic rock kind of guy, but like when I heard them, there's something there. It's like, I really like them, and I was kind of like, as you said there, it's like they seem to appeal to that kind of cross section. There's not like it's not just punk, is it? It's not just this. It's like there's many layers there, I think. Yeah. Particularly lyrically, I think there's a lot there. Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
It's a really tough
this category. I mean, I know, Lee, that you love Blue Nation, but I'm kind of leaning towards the Virgin Marys. I don't know about you.
I'm staying out of it. I'll let you.
Oh man, what we thinking, Lee? Is there any movement?
I can't move on it. It's my release of the year. I can't go, all right. Because it is, for me personally, it's my release of the year. So, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great EP from the Virgin Mary. So I'm going to have to, it's going to be up to you two boys. I'm going to have to.
Oh, man.
I can't release of the year and say, this is my release of the year. Actually, this is better.
It's going to be, for the first time, I think, Lee, we're going to have an overruled moment here.
Can we have joint?
Well, this is the trouble. We always have to come to a conclusion. I mean, this is the problem with the debate. We have to go with one. I think that we're going to have to go with the majority. If Jack is going with Virgin Marys, we may have to go for majority.
You have to go for majority.
I am.
Okay.
Sorry, Lee. I'm sorry.
So for the first ever time, a band has been outvoted. The best EP goes to the Virgin Marys.
Boo! Yeah, I'm joking, boys.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Well done.
Moving on before we get into a fight. It's the best live act. This one could be interesting. So we have Rival Sons, Florence Black. And The Damn Truth. Lee, you were banging the gong for The Damn Truth to get on this list.
Yeah, I was. Seen them twice this year. And in terms of, don't get me wrong, I've also seen the other two acts this year as well. I've seen Florence Black. Love both bands to bits. And always play outstandingly, But there was just something, I don't know if it's because I'd never seen them before and they hit me double out of the barrel. But with the down trip, the energy. Jack, you play the Waterfront studio upstairs because you were playing up there when I saw you with Bad Touch.
Yeah.
And they were playing there a couple of months ago, and they made the place feel massive. And there was absolutely rammed for them. It was a great crowd in there, and it's not the biggest of venues. It's a great venue. Don't get me wrong, but it's great space. But they just made it feel massive. It's just like you were sort of drawn in, you know. Like the first time I saw Rival Sons, I had that appeal. You know, it was just like you didn't look behind you to see what everyone else was doing. You weren't bothered. It was just that energy was insane. And the same when I saw him at the beginning of the year supporting King at the Apex here in Bury. And, you know, it was that thing where they came out at the bat and it was like, yeah, it's King's show. But for the next 45 minutes, that's our stage. And we're going to go out there and prove it. And it was a similar thing to what I was just talking about with Virgin Mary, seeing them support a new model army. You know, people were paying attention. People were grabbed by them. And for me, it was definitely one of the best gigs I've been to this year, seeing them. And even at their, at their own show, obviously, it's like Jack being bands yourself at the time. You get to show so much of yourself at a support slot. But if you can grab people over to your own headline show, they get to see so much more of you and so much more of a sort of 360 version of what you're about. And that's what the Norwich one felt like to me. It felt like, the King show was a little sneak peek, as much as I enjoyed it, but it felt like the Norwich show I got more of the damn truth.
Interesting. One that really kind of stuck out for me this year, of course, Florence Black. I went to go and see them in Nottingham, and they were just like, I don't know, they feel like an arena band already.
Force.
Like they
absolute force.
Yeah, there's something. Like, I mean, they've just been announced with playing at Hellfest, haven't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, the other day, didn't they?
Yeah, like a few days ago, and I think that they're a band that are very quickly like rising. I mean, at this Nottingham gig, I only paid 11 quid. I don't think I'll ever be, being charged 11 quid again. I think I'll be paying much more next time. But yeah, there's this kind of rawness to them, and it's heavy and hard, and there's so much energy there. Again, I think, obviously their album last year, it's just like top level, I think, in my opinion anyway.
Oh god, yeah.
It's obviously they've done the arena shows in Germany,
the ones that they did
this summer. Yeah, you obviously got them at like the right time, Lee, didn't you? You booked them for Just Push Play just before all of this kind of exploded, like the previous year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the same year Jack played with Piston, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
But,
that was the first time I seen them, actually. That was the first time. And I remember, I think I was upstairs and I was just sort of getting ready and stuff. And then I was like, wow, who's this? And I went downstairs and they sounded amazing. They make a lot of noise. So they're three-piece, aren't they?
Yeah, just the three-piece.
The sound is insane.
Yeah, it's a wall of noise for just three people. I don't know how they managed to make such a, say racket, but that's the wrong word. But they're just big, aren't they? They just sound massive.
That was it for me. It was like, I was just at the Rescue Rooms, that kind of smaller room in Nottingham, and it just like it already felt like it was too small for them. Like it felt like they needed, the place was rammed. They had such a big sound. It was like this, they need to upgrade and move next door. It feels that kind of level. Speaking of a band that, I saw next door, Rival Sons, they're kind of the veterans of this kind of section. Have you seen?
That was the three choices. Sorry, Rival Sons. Well,
Rival Sons, Florence Black, and the Damn Truth. Have you seen Rival Sons, Jack?
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them twice now. I saw them on the. What was that sick album? What was the last album they released? It was like amazing.
Feral Roots.
Yeah. They're one of the best bands I've ever seen. To be quite honest, they just blew the roof. I saw them in Birmingham, and then I went to see them in London as well at Ali Palace, and they were amazing.
there's something about GA in particular. Obviously, the vocalist. He's like.
He goes to somewhere else when he's performing, doesn't he? He's like, you just get the impression with Jay, whether there was 3 men and a dog there or 20,000 people, he would perform exactly the same. He's not doing it for you necessarily. It just gets that impression that when he performs, he's going to somewhere else. You know, he's not being a peacock like, you know, sort of a Steven Tyler type frontman. He's going off somewhere internal, I think, sometimes.
I get that impression from all of them, to be honest. Like Scott as well. Scott's got amazing stage presence. Mikey on drums, amazing. Dave Bestie on bass, brilliant. And Todd, you know, they've got the massive beard on the keys. I think he's dead cool as well.
Yeah, Todd's amazing.
With that last gig, I just saw him like, it was just his beard, like just bouncing around. He's like the most enthusiastic guy I've ever seen. But
they just look so cool. They just look so cool, all of them.
I saw there was a picture that came out afterwards where he was outside and he had his own custom cup with his face on it. It had like his beard and everything on this cup, and I was like, "This guy's a dude!" Like, you know. What do you make of Scott Jack? Like, obviously,
he's a guitar player.
Yeah, like he's obviously not that kind of traditional guitar player, I don't think. You know what I mean? Like he's obviously very kind of uses the fuzz a lot. I mean, obviously he's known as a fuzz lord.
I think,
and you know, when it came to his solos, it wasn't like that traditional kind of solo. It was kind of something just a bit different. Yeah.
It's hammering down outside, so I do apologise if you can hear it. I think he's brilliant, to be quite honest, because he's sculpted a sound, and to be honest, I think the sonic sound you hear at Rival Sons is him, because it's his guitar, then it's him, it's his riffs. So that sound, without him, I don't think the band would even sound like Rival Sons. I really don't. And in terms of lead playing, I think like he's not a technical Eddie Van Halen. He's completely different. He's a field player, but he can play. He's he's technically very good as well, I think. He just doesn't. It's you don't always need to put that in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't always need to go to the end of your ability as a player just to sort of prove a point. He doesn't do that at all. You can tell he's got really good chops, he has, because he's very controlled in what he does, but he plays for the song and he plays for the emotion of the song. He's not there to impress anybody. He's there. He looks cool and he's there to sound massive, and he does.
That was a big, that was the big thing I noticed, obviously from the last gig that I went to see them at. It's like, you know, he's not doing that kind of 10-minute solo section where he takes center stage. You know, like, you don't really see that kind of thing. It's, as you say there, Jack, it was like, you know, he just serves the song, or, you know, kind of compliments Jay. Like, it seems like they want to put Jay front and center. You know, they know he's obviously this great singer. You know, maybe try and push him to the forefront. It's tough, isn't it?
It's a tough one.
To be fair, I think between Florence Black and Rival Sons, those guys have won so many awards, it's ridiculous. They win. Like, I think Florence Black picked up every single award when that album came out, like, ever. And Rival Sons are Grammy nominated as well, so I think it'd be fair to give it to The Damn Truth, to be honest.
I mean, obviously, Lee, they were the ones. Yeah.
I was like, and I mean, Florence Black deserve it because they are brilliant. But they've picked up so many awards. I feel bad for like The Damn Truth. I feel like they deserve an award compared to them too. You know,
I think that, you know, with The Damn Truth, they offer something a bit different.
They do.
To perhaps what's around at the minute.
They had a similar vibe to like the first, you know what it's like, the first couple of times you see a band. Like, don't get me wrong, like I saw Rival Sons on the same tour you did, Ryan, this year, the Pressure and Time tour. And obviously because of COVID and everything, it'd been a few years since I'd seen them live. And I'd almost not forgotten how good they were, but that impact wasn't as fresh in my memory because it'd been 2-3 years rather than, you know, before time seeing them. It was all like 6 months between seeing Rival Sons or whatever, because obviously of the UK fairly quickly. And the impact because Day Honey came out obviously in support, it was brilliant as well. And then Rival Sons came out and just took it up into the stratosphere. So don't get me wrong, the impact was still there. But I think those first few times you see a band live, it's always really exciting. And I think that's that sort of wave that I'm riding with that one at the moment. But
it's interesting. So are we going to say the damn truth for being different? Are we going to add to the pile that maybe Florence Black have already got?
They deserve it. I didn't mean that in like they completely deserve them awards.
They'll be going, another award for the pile.
They put so many. Like, I don't think they've got a mantelpiece big enough, have they?
Well, that's it. They're going to have to extend the mantelpiece.
I would go damn truth. That's what I'd go with.
I think we've arrived at our conclusion then. So the best live act for this year is The Damn Truth. The surprises are coming out here. Moving on, best international band. Always an interesting category. We have The Commoners. Dirty Honey. We have the Foo Fighters. Of course, everybody knows they've had a bit of a rocky year. You know, we were speaking just before we kind of went on here with the whole Foo Fighters thing. I mean, we felt that, you know, we have to include them because of that massive show that they had with in Wembley. You know, it's obviously very collaborative. You know, having numerous acts on, but you know, it feels like the biggest thing, you know, in music that's been along for a while, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. Wasn't it something ridiculous like billions of people? It wasn't even millions of people watching. It wasn't like billions of people watching it across the world. It's insane.
It wasn't. It's just like this huge event. I mean, we both said before, didn't we? The, you know, Wolfgang coming on and essentially being his father for a brief period. You know, just being at this like high level. But you know, the one of the things that really kind of sticks with me, particularly from that gig, is, you know, when the Foo Fighters first come out and it's Dave Grohl. And he's doing Times Like These. It's like, oh my God, you know, it's just like, it was heartbreaking, you know, seeing that. It was, you know, you can see that obviously it's understandably, you know, affected them, but to go out and play this kind of huge gig to billions of people probably, with it being broadcast is you know, something else. Yes, Dirty Honey. Obviously, me and Lee have both been banging the gong with Dirty Honey for a while. What do you think of Dirty Honey, Jack? I have a feeling they'd be up your street.
I like the guitar player, actually. I think it was a Les Paul guy in it. Super cool.
Yeah,
Les Paul Marshall. I don't know where they're from. I think they're American, aren't they?
Yeah. California.
Yeah. It's nice to sort of see the bands bringing back that sort of look as well, you know, but doing their own thing with it. That's kind of cool. I think the same with Goodbye June, and there's quite a few bands like that I think it's kind of cool to see that sort of the image and the sound still doing well. You know, I think it's great because we all want to hear it.
I mean, obviously, you know, they have that kind of Aerosmith influence there that Lee obviously likes unashamedly. But I mean, again, vocals from, what's his name, Lee? I can't remember his name.
I can't remember seeing his name.
No. I was hoping that you'd bail me out there, but
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me.
But yeah, you know, he's something LeBon.
Mark LaBelle, in it.
LaBelle, there we go. We got there. Mark LaBelle. You know, he seems like an absolute powerhouse of a vocalist.
I don't know what it was like when you saw him supporting Rival Sons, mate, but they did another last time. He just pretty much, for a section that was completely a cappella.
Yeah.
And the power in his voice was insane.
It felt like, you know, again, another band that I mean, they're coming over to the UK again in January, towards the end of January.
And you're going into February, innit? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I think they're another one that's very much like Florence Black. They're very quickly kind of rising up now. I think that we're going to be seeing them play bigger and bigger venues as kind of over the next 2 years.
One of the most solid crowds I saw at Download this year was for their set, and they opened up the Saturday on the second stage.
Yeah, and that was like a really undesirable time. I remember you saying this. It was like they came out like
in the morning or something like that. You know, like everyone else
Yeah.
still hung over and not left their tent, sort of thing.
Yeah, and for a band that had never even played in this country at that point in time.
It's not a bad gig to come out to, is it? That.
No.
Well, that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a solid opener, isn't it?
We just played Download for our first show. Oh, that's mint.
That's it. And I mean, the Commoners, Lee, you obviously put me onto them.
Yeah, I mean, they're a bit of a discovery for me this year. I believe they've had another couple of albums out, but the album that they released this year, it's just insane. Like, I heard it, Things Never Back Down, the single I heard first off, and massive doses of Black Crows in their sound, which is always a win for me, is always going to be. And they just, was getting the first single called sent through, and it's that thing, you're like, oh, this is cool. And then about, I don't know, a month or two, I got another single sent across, and I'm like, can they just release the album now? Because I've had 2 songs, and I want to hear what else they've got going on. And yeah, they're just being the one I can't stop listening to. And it's that thing where you there's always that part of your brain that once you sort of start soaking something up a bit, you think, is it as good as I think it is, or is it because it's new? Yeah. And you have that sort of initial impact with a new album. And then I probably didn't gone for a period of like maybe a couple of months was the last time I listened to it. And then after we were chatting the other night, right, and I was like, I'm going to listen to that again, because obviously we've been talking about stuff. And I was like, I'm going to try and go on again. I put it on again, and I was like, no, this is a fucking good album. You know, it's not just because it's the first spin I've given it, and it's got that initial punch to it. There's some real good groove on it, and I love the fact that they sort of unashamedly wear their hearts on their sleeves. Influence-wise, I say that, and then when I was chatting to the drummer for the radio show, he's like, I was sort of going, who made you want to pick up drums in the first place, so to speak, and I thought thinking he's going to mention, maybe Joey Kramer from Aerosmith or Dave from Crows or something like that, and he comes out with like Danny Carey of Tool and the drummer from the Deftones, and I'm like, what?
No.
I was not expecting these influences, but we've all got a range of influences when we play. That doesn't mean that necessarily is the style of music that we play, but it's just one of those things. But yeah, that sort of surprised me a bit. But no, I'm loving this album, and when I was speaking to them, I think they're coming to the UK next year for their first UK tour, whenever that may be. Not seen any details on anything yet, so I'm still keeping my eyes open, because I'd really like to see these guys live and sort of experience that side of them, because for me, that's where you fully get a hit from a band is live. Studios can be great, but I think in a live setting is where you always experience a band how this should be.
Yeah, they remind me of Free, actually.
Yeah.
Like a modern Free.
Yeah, it's that kind of. For me, it's like if Free and Black Crows had a child, this would be kind of the outcome.
I think his guitar sounds like very Paul Kossoff, like his tones and the way he plays, and that's the first thing I thought. I was like, this sounds like Paul Kossoff, like reimagined. So they get my vote anyway.
Really? You're going, wow. Bold. Are you just going for the underdog?
I am a fan of the underdog, but I listened to them. I thought they were brilliant. I really enjoyed them.
There is something about them. I think that next year again, it's going to be a band that I think will kind of push forward a bit more. Particularly over here, at least. Anyway, I think that people will be a lot more familiar with them. What are we thinking, Lee? I mean, obviously,
difficult once again, isn't it? Because you've got such an impact of a gig and obviously everything that was behind it wasn't just a gig with the Foo Fighters. Actually, you were celebrating arguably one of the best drummers, certainly in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Easily that unit was one of the best bands I've ever seen with the Foos when I've seen them. But we're going for international bands.
The conflict on Lee's face.
That's why I haven't got any hair anymore, mate. It's too much conflict there.
Yeah. Before this podcast, he had a full head of hair.
I did. When we started talking, it all fucked off.
Exactly.
So we had Commoners Dirty Honey as well, didn't we?
Yeah. It's a hard section. I mean, obviously we've got kind of 3 different levels of band as well. So we've obviously got the Commoners, who are kind of your upcoming band that are probably going to be bigger in the next 2 to a year. That kind of level. We got Dirty Honey, who I'd say are kind of a mid-level band.
Yeah,
I think like if you're going to go for the best, really thinking about it, if you're going to go for the best international band, Dirty Honey have made like such a massive impact on the UK scene from America. Then really, I guess, even though I'd like the Commoners to win because I really like their sound, it should probably be them because they're the ones that have made like a really big impact. Foo Fighters have always had a big audience, haven't they? So
I think we've come to our conclusion, boys.
Yeah. So we're going to say the best international band is Dirty Honey. Moving on, best UK band. We've got some interesting choices here. We've got, to add to the pile of potential awards, we've got Florence Black turning up again. We've got the Howling Tides.
That's the neighborhood. Because you're keeping it close to your chest like you're ever gonna find a way out of this mess.
And then Kira Mack.
Name on his list. Stop thinking with my head. Can I make it out alive or dead? Got nothing left to lose or regret.
I mean, the Tides for me have been, obviously I know them, but they've been around for a while, but then they're really starting to cook this year. They're doing something. I mean, obviously they got second from top on the bill in it, Just Push Play there. And they've just released that EP. But it was at the start of the year they played the Rescue Rooms, and I think that at that point it was like, okay, there's something happening here because it looked very busy. It's like they were doing really well. I mean, somebody threw a bra on stage at one point, so there's some kind of popularity thing going on there with them. But in terms of the music, I think that they're really coming on and really progressing. Their live shows, I think, really kind of come on. I mean, what do you reckon of Kira Mack, Lee? I mean, obviously that was kind of your suggestion there.
Yeah, I mean, Kira Mack, I've unfortunately yet to see them live. I'm hoping to see them shortly. I didn't manage to catch the last dates on tour, unfortunately, because of work. But in terms of a band that's come in with a real bang in the last year, I think they're definitely up there. I mean, Stillhouse made a slot for them, and in this run of summer dates. I think they've had a real big impact. They're already getting on those sort of bigger support slots. They've already got stuff lined up for next summer and some pressing like they're back at Steelhouse again. They're obviously playing at Stone Dead on the Friday night. And this is a band that with certainly 18 months ago I hadn't heard of. Tail end of last year was the first time I heard them, I think. It might have even been January, but I think it was towards this sort of time of the year. And they just seem to have had a real big impact on them. And the album is insane. Like the Chaos is Calling record that they released, I think it was a month or two ago now. Wasn't that long ago. Is fantastic. And they just seem to be making a real big impact. Anyone I know who has seen them has just said, like, you need to get on board here, mate, because they're that good. So yeah, I think they've had a real big impact. Howling Tides Boys obviously been on the scene for a while, and I do feel like this is a year in which they've really grown. That's why, I don't put anyone in the special guest slot lightly, and I just felt like they've really grown as a band, and I felt that they deserved that platform. The Blue Moon EP, like you say, is fantastic, and
I think that they've matured, haven't they?
Yeah,
like, I feel as a
the difference
band
between the two is obviously Howling Tides, like you say, have matured and grown from where they started off at the beginning of the year. Whereas Kira Mac feels like they've come out of the gates running.
Yeah,
it feels like they've come out with a real impact and made that impression with nothing previous, sort of thing. Whereas Howling Tides Boys have obviously been building on the audiences over the last few years.
Obviously Florence Black, we know about Florence Black. they were here just a minute ago, but I mean, again, they've been incredibly busy. They've exploded. Yeah, I mean, we know all about them. What are we thinking, Jack?
I think they're all really good choices, actually. Really good choices. I think the Howling Tides they're real grafters, aren't they? And no matter what adversity they've had with people leaving or rejigging the lineup, they're always working, and they're always pushing through. And I think has all of my respect, because they just haven't took no for an answer. They're just smashing it every single time. Like, you know what, that's happened, so we're just going to crack on and do it again. And I like that. I just think that's some strong people, that is, carrying on, because when you're in that position, it's very difficult. And I think I've seen them live a few times. They're brilliant, I think. And I think that has like my respects, definitely.
It's one of them. I think that Hayden as a guitarist has really come on. I feel, just watching him from, I don't know, 2 years ago, there's been a real kind of vast improvement, I feel. I mean, in all of the band, but I think that, Hayden is kind of really stamping a personality on his kind of playing and, the overall kind of sound. I don't know. I mean, Lee, you obviously put them as second on the billing.
Yeah, I didn't do it like
that's a high. Like, you obviously hold them in high regard.
Completely, and any band that plays Just Push Play, I hold in high regard. But obviously, that evening slot is always so difficult to try and get it right. And I can't tell you how many times I sit there looking at stuff before I'm looking at things going, well, they could go that, no, and then you hear you hear a track and then you think, actually, no, maybe they could go. But with the Howling Tides Boys, it was like, I don't know, I clocked them, I've seen them live, and I just thought, I said to you before, it was that case of going, well, do so and so, outdo them massively. Like, I don't know where this sits, and I was struggling to do it, to be honest, but not because of any other reason other than any band that plays Just Push Play I respect massively. But when it came down to it, I just thought, who's going to feed into Phil Campbell well? Who's going to be that direct undercar that's really going to kick everyone up? And when I last saw the Howling Tides Boys, their energy levels were just so up here that for me it was sort of unmistakable that that's where they needed to be. And I think the footage of the video they've just released for Cut Your Losses shows, obviously it's partially filmed at Just Push Play by yourself, Ryan, and obviously at the Rescue Rooms and Rock City as well. And I think that video is a perfect snapshot of how those boys take to the stage live. I think that as a band, they really honed their craft. I mean, like with Adam getting fretless basses in just to try and go through something different through the EP and bring another dimension to it. I think they really constantly push themselves. I think they're a band that, constantly expand where they're going. in terms of trying to, right, well, we've got to here, but I want to be there. You know, they constantly seem to be pushing themselves and pushing them up, and I think they've had a brilliant year. And I do think they're on that next level, like we're seeing Florence Black making all that impact now and doing these big arena support slots and things like Hellfest and everything. And it's you know, no one could doubt that Florence Black have had an incredible year. But I think bands like the Howling Tides are the next ones on that trajectory.
No, I agree. I mean, obviously they had toured with Ricky Warwick earlier in the year. And it feels like there's something starting to happen with them now. As you say, it's kind of maybe that level below Florence Black where it's like something's going to happen. I think maybe next year where they move up to maybe not far from where Florence Black are. I think we maybe reached a conclusion there, haven't we?
I think so.
Yeah, so the best UK band is the Howling Tides. Next up is Best Breakthrough Artist. So we have The Karma Effect.
I'm gonna steal your heart tonight. Let's not deny you got me burning up inside.
Blue Nation and South of Salem.
It'll be a cold, cold day in hell before I let you get away. 'Cause I love you and I need you, and I want you to stay.
I think all three of these have had a big year. I mean, the Karma Effect, I saw Just Push Play. That was kind of where I was made aware of them. Obviously, now they've since gone on to they've been booked for the Friday on Stone Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they have an album a debut album that seemingly came from nowhere, really, and it feels like they're like an experienced band at this point. Even though it's their debut, they've got a real kind of clear sound and look and vision of perhaps who they want to be and where they want to go. Yeah, I mean, they're ones that kind of really struck me. Blue Nation, Lee.
My release of the year, mate.
Yeah, your release of the year.
But yeah, they're a band that have seemed, like you say, had another great year, great EP release. People starting to pay that attention I was speaking about earlier. They've had some great shows. The likes of Chantel McGregor, Rebecca Downs, the Lou's Blues, the Lou Blues Festival, which is hard to say, even harder to drive to.
We got there.
Just edit it. Just don't put that bit on loop. But yeah, and you know, again, massively one of them. Obviously, I've got them for Just Push Play next year. They've got loads of other summer festivals lined up. The things seem to be really taking off for the guys. I know there's stuff that they've got in the pipeline, which they'll be announcing very soon, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, and I just feel like that they've been, like the Howling Tides boys, finding their craft sort of under the radar a little bit, and I feel like that this year starting to pay off for them, and they're starting to get those shows and starting to get that recognition I think that they deserve.
South of Salem, obviously, Jack, you've gigged with them, haven't you, at some point?
Yeah, we did a whole tour with them. They're great lads. They're like just really, really nice guys. I think whenever you do a tour, you sort of dread, like before you meet anyone, you sort of dread it going, oh no, because we've done tours before where, you know, you just don't get on with the band and it's really difficult, you know, or there's this weird competitive thing where people try and just play a little bit dirty, and we've never been like that ever. And we're really shocked, obviously, when that sort of stuff happened. But when we toured with them and The Treatment, we had it was a long tour. It was I think 16 shows in a row, no day off. It was long, and but we had such a good time with them. And what I will say, we were completely shocked. So I'd never really heard of them before, to be quite honest, because they're relatively new, but they've been grafting away for quite a bit. And they had just as many people coming to those shows as the headliners. You know, there were people there with South of Salem t-shirts from the minute the doors open. They have a really big following already. And it wouldn't surprise me if they really break next year, to be honest, because they've got a solid following of people and they would kill it on merch sales every night. Every night, and they're great. They sound brilliant, and I really like Joey. Joey's a really nice guy, like their lead singer. He's a lovely bloke, and it was a pleasure to tour with them, to be honest.
I think again, it's like it's a band that's just got a really solid identity and sound. Like they know what they want.
They've got a really unique thing going on there as well, haven't they? Compared to everyone else that's going on. Obviously, you know, I unashamedly love my classic rock side of things and stuff. That's more along that vein. And there's a lot of bands out there like that who are doing that side of things, which is great. But, you know, South of Salem have got that slightly more kind of, you know, slightly goth tinge and that kind of horror side to their imagery and to their lyrics and to this sort of whole imagery of the band, which I think offers something different. I think that's why people are hooking into it, because it is that slightly off the beaten track, so to speak. But it's great. The songs are great. They perform amazingly. I don't see what there's not to love about the boys, quite frankly.
I mean, obviously, we know that Lee will probably towards Blue Nation. I mean, he can't. He can't go anywhere else. He's put his flag in the ground.
Yeah.
Who are we thinking, Jack?
Well, I've never seen Blue Nation, so I've never seen him in person. So I've listened to them; they sound really good.
Yeah.
And I think, but they South Salem are my friends as well. So we spent a lot of time with them. And, you know, I'd be gutted if they didn't vote for my band if they're on the award show. So if Joey's listening to this, I hope you've got some ideas for next year, mate. So I think I'd have to say South Salem because I think they will break next year. I am pretty sure of it.
I think they'll have a massive year next year, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think, you know, they're kind of a band that's kind of broke out to a degree after lockdown. Like they seemingly, like I noticed them turning up in New Wave of Classic Rock all of a sudden. It was like, you know, they seem to be everywhere at that point on that page anyway.
Well, we were like quite shocked because we said like, you know, because they're relatively new, aren't they? And we said, "Oh, how have you got such a big audience?" And Joey was saying that, well, we released a lot in lockdown, so when everybody was bored, we were releasing music and building our audience, which, you know, how they did it was very clever, and a lot of the people would see that would come to the gigs were already wearing their T-shirts, so they'd already invested in the band, bought the T-shirts, and they were there. There were South of Sound T-shirts everywhere, to be honest with you, like merch everywhere, and it was really good to see, actually, you know, because that was their first tour. They hadn't played a proper show until that treatment tour.
I mean, that's crazy, really, isn't it? To have and
it's scary to think a band that's never really played. I mean, they even done
like a proper set of gigs, and they've already got
it was mad to see that they hadn't done. I think they'd had various incarnations of the band over the years, but like if they're that strong out the gate, and it's their first tour, and it's not even their own tour, next year they'll be smashing it. They will be smashing it next year.
They've already getting that sort of impact on the scene as well, aren't they? These are a band. If you've not seen them, you've got
to see them, isn't it?
I mean, they're already playing Stone Dead on the main stage next year. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's like they've come out of the blocks, haven't they? It's like they're coming in at a level. You know, I believe last year they went as just people in the crowd, you know, and like here we are next year, and they'll be on the stage. It's like, again, that's a very quick jump to be straight in there. I think for that reason, I'm going to have to say South of Salem. I know, obviously, they're Jack's friends, but I know, you know, just looking at them in terms of how they've kind of built an audience in lockdown. And then, you know, that audience has carried over. It's not just like an online thing. It's quite a difficult thing to do. I mean, it's pretty unprecedented. Yeah, so I think for that reason, we're going to have to say the best breakthrough artist of this year is South of Salem. Sorry, Lee.
I'm going to storm off now.
Oh dear, I feel bad for Blue Nation. I mean, they've been in twice.
The way.
I have nothing against Blue Nation, just saying. Moving on, the best solo artist. Always an interesting category because you're on your own at this point. There's nobody to kind of hide behind. We've got Joanne Shaw Taylor.
One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing.
Jack Broadbent. And Rebecca Downs. It was a weird one with Jack. It was a while ago. His videos just, he's had those kind of viral videos where he was just kind of busking and whatnot. And it turned up on my Facebook, and I was like, he'd be an interesting person. So I look at him on YouTube for like proper music, like proper videos and that. And I think, yeah, he'd be a good guest. Contact him, and within about 24 hours, he's booked, he's done, he's in. And it's like, this is a whirlwind. But you hear the album, and it's like, this is a great album, Ride. And then obviously, like a bit later on in the year, I meet him, and he's this really cool guy, Lincoln guy. But he's a guy that's kind of really, over the last like 5 years, kind of exploded in America and Canada. Obviously toured with Leonard Skinner. He's been a busy guy. Peter Frampton recently for the last tour. In Europe. Busy man. Rebecca Downs, of course, your choice, Lee.
Yeah, someone I was aware of a few years ago after I saw her supporting Magnum. Incredible voice, hell of a player. She's one of those performers you go see her and you just, you could hear a pin drop when you hear her play. It's just that kind of stark, really draws you in. Hell of a performer. One of the nicest people I've ever got to interview for the radio show. Absolute diamond, and I think her latest album is fantastic. I was saying to you, also, you got that Free cover on there, which for anyone else trying to cover Free would sound, ridiculous. With someone trying to do Paul Rodgers vocals, but with Rebecca, it fits, and not only does it fit, it sounds like A Little Bit of Love could have been written by her and Steve, who she writes a lot of her songs with. It fits so well into that group of songs that she's written throughout the rest of the record, and I just think she's incredible. I just think she's great.
I mean, the thing that struck me with her was obviously the power in her vocals. Again, it's another powerful vocalist. That was kind of the real standout thing for me with her. There's this real raw, strong vocal ability in there. Joanne Shaw Taylor, obviously, she's been around a while, but really kind of. I believe she's bigger in America, isn't she? She's kind of exploded a bit
these days, I believe.
Yeah, obviously she's had that kind of loose partnership with Joe Bonamassa, and I think that's kind of honed her sound a bit more, perhaps. But yeah,
it takes some big balls, so to speak, to even play next to Joe Bonamassa in the shit. Could you imagine? Like, I don't think I'd have the confidence to do it. I just like, yo, you just track it for me, just give me the guitar.
it's yeah. I mean, she was in when I spoke with her a while back. She was doing. I think he was producing the album, that blues album,
isn't she?
Yeah, and she was saying about Joe wanted her to use a specific type of guitar, and she wasn't having none of it. She was like, "No, like this is what I want. This is the sound I want." And like to be that confident in front of a guy that's like an accomplished musician, he's like one of the biggest kind of blues artists around at the minute.
I think he's one of the best guitar players in the world. He's like, he would be of famous people. I'm sure there's millions of probably not thousands, maybe hundreds, probably 20.
Millions
that could probably play like Joe Bonamassa. But in the world, if of all of them, he is just he's like a machine. You push the button and he's off. He doesn't make a mistake all night.
That's tough. Who are we thinking? A hard category, isn't it?
It is hard category. It's not easy.
Yeah. I think Joanne Shaw Taylor's already kind of a very accomplished musician. I feel that, she's obviously she released another album this year. I mean, she's very busy, always releasing albums.
Yeah.
I think Rebecca Downs has grafted as well.
Yeah,
and it's nice that with that release that she's actually getting like some really good press and people are really paying attention. That's really nice to see that, isn't it?
I mean, I do think. I mean, obviously, this newest release has kind of propelled her a bit forward a bit more.
I think so.
Are we going to go with Rebecca Downs then?
I think so. I would. That's my vote anyway.
What are we thinking? I feel that Lee wants Rebecca Downs to win. I can see it in his eyes. Okay, so we got best solo artist is Rebecca Downs. Lee finally wins the category.
My work here is done.
Yeah. We're nearly approaching the end. We're very close. Best single. It's a new category this year. We thought we'd kind of have something very kind of track centric. We've got Brave Rival with Heart Attack. Jack White's If I Die Tomorrow.
So if I die tomorrow, will you know exactly what to say today?
And The Answer, Blood Brother.
Sister, blood brother, I need you to know. Blood brother, blood sister, come on.
I mean, The Answer have come back out of nowhere, haven't they? I mean, they
Come back with a force, haven't they?
Yeah, they seemingly went on some kind of long hiatus. I mean, I thought that was kind of it for them, really, until obviously recently with this new single and new album announcement that's coming. I mean, they feel re-energized to me. I don't know. There's something about them that's maybe the break's done them good. I don't know.
It feels like. And Ryan, I spoke to Cormac the other day for the radio show, and I've been fortunate enough to hear out that album that's coming out in March. And the whole album, as I said to Cormac, I spoke to him the other day, it sounds like, it almost feels like a second debut, like a reintroduction to this is where the answers stand now. And I really felt that, like with Blood Brother being the first single, that was the first bit of that. I go back to 2006 with The Answer. I go back to sort of album one with them, and I've been a fan of them for a long time. So equally, Solas was 2015. So you're talking 7 years since any new material. I think 6 of those they've been on sort of hiatus. So when they came back and, made the announcement that they'd reformed and they'd picked everything back up again, and this new single was going to come out, I was really excited. And then, I spoke to Cormac when he did his White Feather solo album a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago. And it was earlier last year when I spoke to him. And I had to ask him, is there any plans for The Answer? Because they never said they'd split up or anything. They just went on a break.
Yeah, it was like some long hiatus that just never...
Yeah, it was just like they went off and did different things for a while.
Yeah.
And he said that they were in a good place, but to do it, but obviously with COVID and everything, he didn't know how it would work, because the guitarist Paul lives in France. James and Cormac are still in Northern Ireland. Mickey's in England, so it was all a bit weird to try and do anything. But when the single came out, so Blood Brother, it was everything I wanted it to be. I got that same buzz from Blood Brother that I did the first time I heard Never Too Late, which was the first single I heard of Rise. And it just feels like they've come back with a bang. They've come back to almost, without doubt, and we spoke about this before, Ryan and Jack, I don't know where you stand on it yourself, but those early kind of pre-new wave of classic rock bands that were setting those foundation bands, bands like The Answer and Heaven's Basement and Black Stone Cherry, they were easily they were my top band out of that lot that were coming through. And it feels like it was the single sort of doffed the cap, if you like, to their past, while still sounding, like they'd matured and moved on and built up that thing.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I remember when Piston first started, it was at that time when it was Heaven's Basement, The Answer and Blackstone Cherry. There was no new wave of classic rock movement. There was actually most of the bands now that we just wasn't there. And I remember thinking, there was a scene, but there wasn't much of one really at that time, I didn't think, apart from them 3 bands that were doing really well. But now you look at it, and I don't know whether it's just because I'm more involved in it and I know what's going on now, or whether there genuinely wasn't many people about and it's just exploded in recent years, because it just seems there's so many people now that are all doing it, and it's nice to see, isn't it? But like Lee was saying, I think the Answer were there. I was always in their inbox trying to get support slots. They were politely telling me to go away. Maybe next time.
Here's your chance. For me, they were part of that kind of, as I was growing up, really, that kind of original crop of kind of the pre new wave of classic rock. There was certainly something brewing with them and Heaven's Basement and all that. Yes, a track that kind of really surprised me really was Jack White. Obviously, we know he's won everything under the sun and whatnot, but this is off his kind of second release this year. He's had 2 releases in just 1 year. And it just feels, again, it's the mark of an accomplished musician, I think.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and and I think that he keeps finding ways to refresh himself. There's something every time that he seems to find a new thing while still being Jack White at the same time. Obviously, Lee, I was saying about this in the top 10 albums, and you messaged me a while back when you were doing your radio show, and you were like, "This is a great single," and I was like,
"Great single, man." I go back to early White Stripe days with Jack White and that from my teenage years, and he's always been someone I've really admired as an artist who constantly, really sort of establishes himself, pushes his boundaries. And then there's some albums where he comes right back to where he started, and the whole album was fantastic. I hadn't heard it until you brought it up in the sort of top album show that we did, mate. But it's an incredible album. The single's fantastic. I think it's the best album he's done in a long time.
Yeah, it's a weird one because I think because Fear of the Dawn was kind of his main one of the year, and then it's like this other one that's kind of come out. The other one's kind of got a bit buried. Whereas I feel it's superior, in my opinion. Yeah, and I do think as well. I think it's some of the best material he's released in a long time. Brave Rival, Lee.
Yeah, I mean they're a band that came out. I think they're great. The vocals are on there fantastic. The album itself, which names it, Life's Machine, is fantastic. The single Heart Attack has got a great groove to it. It's got a great riff, great melody in it, and it was one of the ones. Yet again, going back to what we were sort of talking through about other singles previously, it was one that just cut through when I was sort of getting stuff sent to me for the radio show, getting played, and it was that one where it made you wake up and pay attention a bit with the energy that's in that song. And I thought, no, I've got to give this more of a listen, and got to speak to Lindsay and Clay with the Bland on the radio show when they released the album. And great girls, great singers, whole band's tight as anything. And yeah, just did that. But that was the particular single that I've probably played most on the radio show this year. It's the one that I keep going back to when. Not filler's not the right term, but
when I got nothing else to play.
But it's like me on my radio show. I try to play new stuff every week. Everything that gets sent to me, I try to give it some airtime. So there's always that bit where you're trying to put in the new songs that have come to you, and then you're trying to obviously put stuff in around my interviews that I do. So I'll be playing songs from the artists that I'm talking to, and then you kind of try and map it out so it all kind of links up. But Brave Rival and Heart Attack is a song I kept coming back to when there were songs I was just trying to fill the show with in terms of songs that I was really excited by.
Like a go-to single.
Yeah, like that weren't necessarily linked to new things that I had coming through or, the interviews that I was doing necessarily, just songs that I wanted to play because I was enjoying them. And I think I was looking back through my statistics and stuff, and it was the single I played most. Only slightly below that was Blue Nation. You'll be surprised to know.
I mean, for me, I like the Heart Attack track. It's a catch track. For me, I'm erring towards The Answer. I think because they've been gone for a while now, and it's kind of they've just, it's like bang, we're back. We're going to do gigs next year, and here's this track, and it sounds like they've never been away, but kind of matured still at the same time. It's I don't know, there was something as it feels good to have them back, and that kind of signified them being back.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on this one.
Yeah. So the best single is The Answer with Blood Brother. The final category is the big one that probably everybody's been waiting for. Of course, it's best album. Always a tough one to decide. I'm sure this one will be. The nominees are Troy Redfern, The Wings of Salvation. By June, See Where the Night Goes.
It's time. I'm in love with that sweet, sweet, sweet sunshine.
Cardinal Black with January Came Close. The thing which really struck me when I was speaking with Troy about the Wings of Salvation was this album came from nothing to being completed, like no lyrics, no nothing, to being finished in 4 weeks. Which, I mean, I don't know about you, Jab, but I think that's quite unprecedented. I don't know how quick you can make an album.
I mean, I'll have whatever he's having for breakfast.
I mean, this is no lyrics, no, like, from scratch in 4 weeks. I mean, that's fierce.
Yeah, that's good going. That is good going.
I mean, what did you think of it, Lee? I mean, I got sent it in advance for the interview.
Well, as you know, when we did the albums of the year, it was my album of the year. You know? Yeah. It was, for me, I thought the production on it was great. It really captured the sort of raw intensity in which when you'll see Troy live. And I think because it was done as quickly as you say, sometimes for me, if an album's had, don't get me wrong, some albums I love have been spending a lot of time on and they sound amazing. But I think sometimes there's a lot to be said for capturing a lightning in the bottle. Yeah. And it really felt like that on this record. It really felt that what was supposed to be captured got captured, and it got captured great. It's no doubt for me that Troy is one of the finest slide guitarists I've ever seen in my life. But I feel like on this album, his vocals were really solid. Like, I think his vocals should be getting a good. I remember him saying when I think he said the same thing to you when you were talking to him, that the vocals were getting a lot of attention in terms of something he wanted to push it forward. Exactly. And I think they sound great. I think there was a lot to be said for the fact that he was doing everything in one take, or what I mean by that is there was the guitar like part of each song was one take. So although he might have taken a different vocal line over the top, he wasn't piecing things together throughout the guitar lines or bass tracks or anything like that, which I think feels a lot to be said for making it feel like a whole complete process. And it's just tracks like Dark Religion that go off a little bit off the beat intentional stuff that people might know Troy for. Sweet Carolina's got a definite bit of a glam rock stomp to it. I think it's an incredible record, and I don't know where Troy's going to go from here, because I've been a fan of his for a long time, and then he came out with Fire Cosmic last year, which was a real, smashing through the park sort of album for him and got him a lot of attention. And I didn't think he was going to bear Fire Cosmic, to be honest, because I think that's an incredible record. Yeah. Then he came out with this, and I was like, okay, I was wrong. I don't know where you managed to take it up a gear, but you have. So I'm sure he'll prove me wrong again, because Troy's always pushing himself and always wanting to, like any artist, any musician is always trying to push themselves forward and try different things and try and get a better representation of who they are. And I'm sure he'll do it, but I don't see where from, but I'll happily be surprised on the next release, I'm sure.
I mean, I think it's really difficult, isn't it, when you've already had like something that's really popular, and then you go and follow it up, a year later? Yeah. It's there could have been this moment where it's like, probably not as good, or perhaps wouldn't be received as well. It's a bit of a gamble, really, I think, to just go bang, here's another thing. Goodbye June. A band that was a second in the series this year, second interview. I think this album in particular, See Where the Night Goes, it's lifted them up a whole new level, I feel. Yeah. you know, I think, I mean, I enjoy their previous work, but I feel that
It feels
this
like
one
a
is,
step up, though, doesn't it?
yeah, I think that, you know, it's brought them a lot more like new fans, a lot more interest. You know, it's kind of re-energized them, I think. I mean, what do you think, Jack? Do you think with Goodbye June?
I think it's great to see a band like that making waves, to be honest. It's nice to see, because they've sort of been bubbling underneath the surface for quite a few years, haven't they? I think they've been on earache for quite a while, and nothing really came out, you know, and then suddenly it's all, and then it's nice to see. It's the same with Dirty Honey, you know, and it's the same sort of thing with those type of bands. It's nice to see that, you know, they've been really working hard beneath the surface, and then it all start pushing through. It's nice to see that.
I think that's the thing with them. It's I mean, Landon, the singer, he kind of he says, "Oh, this is an album that, you know, it's a fun album that you can put on where you have a barbecue. You know, it's like a summer album.
It's the album you put on if you had your mates round on the Saturday night and you were getting pissed and having a laugh. That is the album you put on.
Yeah, like it feels like it's a real good feel-good album, I think. And I do think that, you know, that lyrically they've stepped up. Yeah, I feel that, you know, it's a massive step up for them. Cardinal Black, January came close. Of course, Chris Buck, everybody, you know, who's aware of Cardinal Black kind of knows all about him. But I think that, you know, as we spoke about before, Lee, I think with Tommy's vocals in particular, it's so like soulful and powerful. I mean, there's a few bands now that I've spoke with where they've all said, you know, when they hear them live, they're like, this is something. Yeah.
They were the band that, when they were on, I saw the most number of other band members in the audience had come out for those guys. And they were great. Like you say, Tom's vocals were insane. Just like the power and the soul in that man has got in his voice is ridiculous. It's way beyond the years he's lived. You know, he's got that kind of voice. And the album's brilliant. You know, like we've said before, and we've been talking about it, like, in comparison to the Goodbye June album, which is like an
it's
album.
the other way, isn't it?
It's completely opposite. You know, the Goodbye June, they say it's a barbecue, it's a party, it's a good feel good album. And Cardinal Black is an album where you'd have it on vinyl, chuck it on your vinyl player and just soak it up and lock out the rest of the world to it, you know. It's that album.
Yeah, for me, it's that kind of it's the Sunday album. You know, if you want to relax, I think that's perfect for that kind of thing. This is always the hard one. Obviously, this is the big section, the big one. I feel that it's perhaps between Goodbye June and Troy. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
I think it's nice to see, like, Troy again is just another grafter, isn't he? It's not nice to see that.
I mean, he's a guy that's. I mean, we spoke about him last year when we were with Aaron, and he seemed to just not stop touring last year at all. He was the guy that just moved out of home. He didn't go back home, I don't think, for about a year.
He came off a tour with the Choir Boys, then went on with Sweet, and then he came off of them and went off with someone else.
When Rivers Meet as well.
When Rivers Meet, yeah, at the beginning of the year. Well, it's just crazy. He's
very busy, and then, you know, this year he's kind of, it's like, well, here's another album. I do think it's the epitome of grafting, isn't it? Really is.
Do an album in 4 weeks from nothing.
I think what you got to remember as well, like when you're in a band, there's 5 people that bounce ideas off one another.
Yeah,
and that's one man. That's one guy.
Yeah.
You know, one guy funding everything himself, one guy writing everything, one guy that's taking himself out on the road. That's it's I don't know what the word is that I'm after, but it's very impressive. Yeah.
I mean, this is it for me. I mean, a while ago when I saw him play with last year with Robert John and the Wreck. It's like, he came on his own, he turned up with his own kit, set up his own gear, and it's like, he plays on his own for that evening. It was just him and a kick drum. So he's very much just kind of exposed, really, and he just has such a raw ability. Particularly his guitar work, I think, his slide ability is like ridiculous, really. I mean, I saw him do the sound check for it, and he was just like, and it felt like he was again another guy that's kind of another level that maybe people haven't quite noticed at that period of time.
He's like a cartoon character, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he last year we said that he looked extraordinarily like that dude from Red Dead Redemption.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like you look at Guitar Heroes and like they have a certain look. You see a top hat and a cigarette, and you think of Slash.
Yeah.
And you sort of see his beard, and it's not a top hat, whatever hat it is. His mustache and the thing, and the slide, and you just instantly think of him. He's like a cartoon character. He's got a great image.
It's that kind of, as you said there, it does feel that kind of like classic, like rock star guitarist look, but he's made it his own. Yeah, kind of like Zorro. So are we decided? I think. Yeah, I feel that with the amount of work that he puts in. I mean, he even designed the cover art for the album.
We did.
I mean, it's literally everything, top to bottom, really. Yeah. So I think the best album of 2022 is Troy Redfern with the Wings of Salvation. Crazy. And of course, that does conclude this year's Beyond the Vibe Awards. Of course, thank you very much for you guys joining me.
You're very welcome.
It's been cool, man. And of course, where can people find you, Jay? I mean, obviously now you do the guitar lessons, and next year we kind of touched on that there might be some projects appearing.
It'll definitely be a project next year. We're just taking our time with it, really, and we're playing around with band names and stuff. It's nice. We're just making sure the songs are super strong. We're not rushing into anything. So I'll be out like a bad smell next year, I'd imagine, again. So just everyone to keep their eyes peeled.
And obviously, for those that don't know Lee, you do obviously have the rock show. Where can people find that?
The rock show every Friday, 6 till 8 on RWS FM, local station to me in Suffolk, but you can listen to it online. You can catch up with it on Mixcloud, all that kind of business. And yeah, that's me. And also we've got Just Push Play next year, where some of the acts we've been talking about tonight are also playing.
Yes. Conveniently, I think Troy's there as well, isn't he? Look at that for a tie-in. But yes, that is it for this year on Beyond the Vibe. At the time of release, that'll be the end of the year, and so we will see you next year.